Despite its somewhat cult classic status, Syberia released in 2002 as a point-and-click adventure with relatively unremarkable mechanics for the time. It was, however, elevated by Belgian comic artist Benoit Sokal's striking designs, a limited but evocative soundtrack, and a narrative that blended a relatable journey of self-discovery with a surreal adventure into the unknown. After replaying it to relive the story, my third playthrough if I count the awkward console ports of the PC original, I'd argue Syberia Remastered is the most modernized and accessible way to play this often uneven classic. The updated visuals are beautiful yet faithful, the UI and journal are much clearer, and the few puzzles that have been expanded or tweaked still feel coherent with the original designs. That said, old flaws remain. Moving Kate manually can be a drag in larger environments, and a few new bugs can frustrate. Starting with the good, what I love most about Syberia is how it balances a growing sense of wonder with increasing unease. Think about any time you've chosen or been forced to leave your comfort zone to tackle something new, and you'll understand what I mean. You control Kate Walker, a New York lawyer who looks and sounds like part of our world, as her journey eastward, from the French Alps towards Russian Syberia, feels increasingly detached from reality. Kate arrives in Valladolid to conclude the sale of the Vorarlberg family automaton business to an American company, only to find the owner has recently passed away and her short business trip is about to get incredibly complicated. After learning of another heir, the reclusive Hans Vorarlberg, who was long presumed dead, Kate begins a journey that will take her further and further away from her current life, her friends, her family, and everything she thought was important. She ends up traveling on a clockwork train in the company of the weird but likable automaton Oscar, following in the footsteps of Hans Vorarlberg decades after he departed. She delves into the Vorarlberg's tragic family history. She explores seemingly forgotten corners of the world, and encounters an eclectic cast of those left behind and burdened by unfulfilled dreams. It makes for a compelling but also weirdly paced narrative that sometimes unfolds with no particular sense of direction and escalation, other than geographically. I normally dislike modern games that sacrifice good pacing for a bloated length. However, you can see the end of Syberia Remastered in just 6 to 7 hours, your puzzle-solving skills permitting, so it feels more like deliberate and confident pacing in service of the narrative beats. Kate's journey is literally about her going off the rails, well, on the rails. It is full of discoveries and revelations about both her curious client and herself. There is a lot of exposition that is not always well written. It features some dated stereotypes, and the voice acting is variable, yet it consistently delivers emotional highs and lows that so many modern cinematic AAA games fail to generate, despite all their visual splendor, motion capture, and professional voice work. Gameplay-wise, Syberia Remastered is more of a challenge to recommend in 2025. It has the same mechanical weaknesses as the original game, even with an updated journal and a handful of expanded puzzles to flesh out some locations. The problem is that, unlike so many of its peers at the time, Syberia was never about small but dense environments, pixel hunting for items and interaction spots, or absurd use everything on everything experimentation. Instead, you explore large and beautiful zones, exhaust dialogue trees for plot triggers, collect only a handful of key items sequentially, and tackle maybe 2 or 3 major puzzles in each area. It feels more streamlined and logical than many point-and-click games from that era, but the size of the environments and deliberate back-and-forth questing can make backtracking tedious, especially when using a controller. There were times I wished I was playing on PC with mouse and keyboard, so I could just double-click somewhere on the screen instead of holding down the run button and a thumbstick. On the upside, those environments are a joy to explore at first, with each location feeling suitably wondrous and surreal. Kate explores a declining alpine town with clockwork mechanisms and specialized automatons serving the aging, dwindling population. She travels to a quirky German university, found alongside what looks like a giant extension of the Berlin Wall, meeting the bizarre faculty members, exploring an incredible aviary, and learning about Hans's fascination with the Siberian mammoths. She explores and escapes an abandoned Russian industrial city run by an isolated and obsessed mayor. She visits a cosmodrome to help a despondent and drunken cosmonaut finally get airborne. and she travels to a mostly forgotten health retreat, located in a barren salt plain, to aid an aging opera singer feel alive again, if only for a while. Every step of the journey feels more surreal than the last, and Kate's fiancé, boss, friend and mother, most of them self-interested and fixated on their own shallow lives, frequently call. They all struggle to make sense of Kate's trajectory from a corporate ladder climber to a headstrong explorer willing to push even further into the unknown. Again, Syberia is no masterpiece of video game writing, and this remaster has some dubious subtitle translation and in-text transcriptions, but it nails the atmosphere, and Kate's voice actor, Sharon Mann for the English dub, did an incredible job of capturing her shifting and conflicting emotions. All that said, cult classics like Syberia benefit from a mix of hyperbolic praise from fans and the potential hype around any re-release, remastering or remake. As one of those fans, and as a fan of classic point-and-click adventures in general, I consider Syberia Remastered a worthy effort that preserves a classic game while making it more accessible across multiple platforms. It stays faithful to the source material despite the visual overhaul. The expanded puzzles add a little novelty for returning players, while the clearer UI and journal might prove essential for new players. The classic mechanics are not going to be for everyone, but it still holds up thanks to the surreal atmosphere, the weird and diverse cast, and the timeless journey of self-discovery themes. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel as it helps us grow.